Here is the voice of the working class, Rick Smith.
And welcome, brothers, sisters, working class heroes. This is the Rick Smith Show. Thanks so much for being here today on the big program. Lots to get to, lots to talk about. Former ex-president Donald Trump testifying today in New York. And it was every bit of the giant S show that you knew it was going to be. It was going to be a temper tantrum. It was going to be a circus. And yes, it was all those things. It was all of the things that someone who has no respect for the law, has no respect for our country. It's exactly the victim card that you knew he had to play, because it's his only defense. His only defense is, they're persecuting me. Poor, pitiful me. Look what they're doing to me. And I love the punchline. And I'm doing this for you. What a political spin. Incredible stuff. And this is what happens when you have people who refuse to believe that the law applies to them. So, when the judge says, hey, restrain your client, to any normal person in this country, the judge goes, hey, you better cut it out. Or the lawyer goes, hey, better cut it out. The judge is going to, bad things. Not this guy, not these people. Again, the normal rules with these people who hate democracy and feel they're above the law do not apply. And look, it plays well to every person who ever felt that the system was bad to them, that they were ever wronged by the man. He's their champion because he's taking them on. Look, you had this judge say to the lawyer, I beseech you to control him if you can. If you can't, I will, he said. And then proceeded to not. And just gave in and allowed Trump to just rant and rave and, attack him, attack the prosecutor, because that's what Trump does. And the interesting thing is Trump admitted that he had influence on the valuation of the properties. Even though there's all them over there. He admitted, but it doesn't matter. This isn't about facts. This isn't about the law. This isn't about any of that. For Trump world, this is all about, got to play the victim, got to raise money because, hey, I got the emails today. Send as little as $1. We need your money. Because you can own the libs. If you send us the money, you will own those Democrats, Marxists, socialists, whatever. You get the list. And nobody in our mainstream media is bothering to, pay attention, to do anything with it. There is one lone voice. There is one lone voice fighting the good fight to show just how crazy Trump is, and that's Ron DeSantis. He released 21 video clips showing Trump and his cognitive decline, according to Ron DeSantis. And look, I think, Trump's been cognitively declined for quite some time. But you got the one guy saying that he's messed up. He's unfit. And not because of all the crimes and all the, no, it's because he blathers on like an idiot. And all the while, what you've got all this chaos that comes with the Trump machine. And today you got Joe Biden just showing up doing the job. Going to announce they announced a $16.4 billion investment in rail on the Northeast Corridor. So you might actually get from, my house to Boston, in under a month. Move us into the 20th century, hopefully, and even into the 21st century with some sound investment. It might be a good thing. If only we had a president who showed up and did his job. Wouldn't that be great? Oh, yeah, we got one, and everyone seems to hate him. The polling numbers not good, and we're going to talk about that. So you got the Trump thing, and that's, you expected that. But over the weekend, I had, oh, man, my email went crazy over the weekend. And it's something that I had nothing to do with. Understand, I am a Teamster member. I am not in any way, shape, or form associated with the leadership at the IBT. So let me just, first and foremost, just to get this on the record, I am not a spokesman for the Teamsters Union. I am a member. Secondly, I don't know Sean O'Brien well enough to say I know what he's thinking. I don't. And three, they don't return my phone calls. So I don't know what they're thinking. So that's on the record. I want to be very clear there because I don't want the IBT upset at me any more than they already are. If they are, who knows, because they don't return a phone call. But over the weekend, I got hit with a bunch of emails because evidently Sean O'Brien met with Josh Hawley and gave him the guided tour of the Teamsters headquarters in Washington, D.C. And there were smiling pictures on social media of them shaking hands and yucking it up. And as I tweeted out, there's nothing to be concerned about here. This is just, you talk to people. You want to try and win people over to your side because ultimately Sean O'Brien is about getting the best deal and the best, legislation and the best opportunities for members like me and for working people in general. So when these photos came out, people are losing their minds. So my response was, I'm not worried about it. Calm down. Maybe I'll worry if it's Mark Wayne Mullen. And that felt like a lead balloon, but it was what it was. So I got people who were going, hey, are the Teamsters going to pull the 1980 and support a Republican for president? I don't know what their plans are. I doubt it because Trump was so bad and Biden on labor issues has been so very, very good. I can't imagine, but also understand in 1980, the Teamsters didn't really have a choice because Carter signed trucking deregulation. And it was Reagan who then used that signature to destroy the trucking industry. It was a kill me now or kill me later. But that's what happened. I got another person saying, why is O'Brien talking with Josh Hawley? He has a 12% AFL-CIO voting record on worker issues. And that's true. He's got a crummy record on working issues. But you talk to your enemies. I mean, this is the reality. You have to talk to your enemies because maybe you can swing them to your side. Not on every issue, but on some things that may be in their interest, that they understand their constituents. It's important to them. There are a lot of union members, a lot of Teamsters in Missouri. I've got friends there. So I don't have a problem with talking to the enemy. I think it's important that you do, because then maybe they don't want to attack you. Sounds interesting to me. Another one said, doesn't O'Brien know Josh Hawley and the GOP hate workers, especially union workers? I hope so. I gotta think he does. I got to think he's looking at the same voting records that I'm looking at. Another one said, OMG, WTF, Teamsters courting crazy Republicans. Democrats are in trouble. And that's the one that got me thinking. Because I've said for a very long time, if the Republican Party, not the crazies, but the party as a whole stopped being anti-worker, stopped pursuing the whole no rights at work agenda, that Democrats would in fact be in trouble. Because understand, the Democratic coalition that was the Obama coalition, that was what Biden used and what is touted as this great thing. What this great thing was is hard to keep together. The glue is hard to keep stuck. And managing that big tent is difficult because everyone has their silo. And I've said from the very beginning that reuniting this country means reunionizing this country, getting people to understand their economic connectiveness. And maybe, who knows, maybe this is what O'Brien was doing. I don't know. Again, they don't return our call. But you may remember the AFL-CIO did a campaign several years ago. Even had a cute little 1-minute ad that no one saw. It was called Work Binds Us. It was so hard-hitting that the Chamber of Commerce issued a press release, a scathing press release that said, we agree. Yeah, they agree. And it was, work is what pulls us together. Work is what, being tired. It was this whole thing that, unity, exactly what I've been talking about. And I fear that because the Democrats are so splintered and so easily to be divided and pitted against each other, that it's going to be a rough 2024. I got friends who think, oh, it's a cakewalk, Biden's going to win. I don't know. In the latest Siena College poll that just came out, it ain't good because this election is going to come down to 6 states. All the other ones are decided before a vote is even cast. Virtually all of them, there are going to be no surprises. But it's going to come down to Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. That's what it's going to come down to. And right now, according to this Siena College poll, Trump's winning 5 of the 6. Only Wisconsin, Biden is winning, and that's only by 2 points. In fact, Biden's losing by 4 points overall. Now, I know, we're early. These polls are usually skewed. There's a whole bunch of, but the messaging coming out of this is not good. And for me, we're in a moment right now with everything going on in the world where, again, division, pitted against each other. For me, I think you got to come back to the bread and butter. Get back to the pulling people together on the work front. And that comes back to O'Brien. There should be some courting of the unions. And look, a number of unions have already come out and endorsed. But this is one of those moments where you're going to need organized labor to help stir the ship. Because Biden has an incredible record to run on those fronts. But I want to hear your thoughts. Are you concerned? Would you be concerned with O'Brien meeting with Josh Hawley? Or is it just, hey, it's politics. You're talking to people. It's what we do. We hammer out agreements. We find common ground. That's where I'm at. I want to hear where you are. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. I'm going to take a quick break. Right back with your thoughts. Stick around. Listen to The Rick Smith Show. We're working people. Good talk.
We are AFGE, the American Federation of Government Employees. We represent 700,000 federal and D.C. government workers who are the vital threads of the fabric of American life. We support our nation's military. We take care of our nation's veterans. We protect our nation's borders. We respond to our nation's crises and natural disasters. We provide services to our nation's seniors. The American Federation of Government Employees. We work for America.
The phone lines are open. Give Rick a call at 1-866-416-RICK. That's 1-866-416-7425. Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
Let's quick go to the phones. We've got Kurt on line 1. Kurt, how you doing today?
Hey, good evening, Rick, and thank you for calling. Thank you for answering. Hey, first of all, real quick, Ohio, big election tomorrow. I already voted. Hopefully it'll turn out the way I want it to, and that'll give Frank LaRose not 1, but 2 more defeats to add to his 2023 defeats that he's had this year. So that'll give him 3. Going into the election next year against Sherrod Brown. So that's the first thing.
Right.
Second thing, Trump's little tantrum. If he thinks that his people believe that he's doing this for them, I got news for his supporters. You ain't Trump, and you mouth off the way Trump does, that 2-tier justice system isn't going to work for you. You'll be sitting in pretrial detention, pending trial. So you're nowhere near being what Donald Trump is. Donald Trump is very much benefiting from the 2-tier justice system at this point. The next thing, Teamsters. I don't see too much of a problem with the Teamsters talking to Josh Hawley. I would just be a little cautious, maybe keep the antennas up. But you know what? It could be worse, too. Just think, back in 1970 in the Akron Rubber Bowl, they had the Ohio National Guard there in April of 1970 trying to break up a Teamsters strike, too. So, it could be worse in that situation.
No, good point.
So that's your labor history for tonight, kids.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, so anyway, the that's pretty much it. I'll keep it short so you can get people on. But
Thanks.
Anywho, doing a great job, and everyone in Ohio. Oh, real quickly, the polls. One last thing, the polls. David Pakman is on after your show on WCPT, and he actually explains those polls that you were talking about, and it doesn't seem as horrible as what it says in print. And I can't do it justice in how to explain it, but people tune in after Rick's show to the David Pakman show, and it's like the first or second story that he talks about those polls.
Thanks. Appreciate it, Kurt. Thanks so much. Let's move down the line to, I guess we got Alice on line 2. Alice, how we doing?
Fine, how's that?
Predictable.
Yes. So what I wanted to say was, I read an article, it was in this evening's paper in the Washington Post about that, and I thought, how in the name of all that's holy can Trump be leading in these polls? Which leads me to believe either they're contacting people who are totally insane.
That's part of it.
Yeah. Or they're not contacting enough people. Or last, the whole darn state of Pennsylvania has become Republican, and I'm not buying that either. I will admit my little rural county is decidedly turned red, but anyone that, it just boggles the mind. All these trials, 91 indictments, anyone listening to him, it's a word salad. He makes absolutely no sense. And I am just flabbergasted.
Yeah, well, it also has a lot to do with the inflation that people are struggling. And things haven't gotten better for a lot of people, and they're angry. And they're going to lash out at the administration. If this were 3 months before the election, I would be more concerned than I am. I think things will be fine. We'll see, but it's still people got to get out and vote. I appreciate the thoughts, Alice.
Have a good evening.
As always, good stuff. Let's go to Steve on line 3. Steve, how we doing, man?
Fine, thank you. And I think you're correct. I didn't catch everything there, but every election turns on the kitchen table issues. I mean, Carville wasn't the first to say it, but it's the economy, stupid.
Yep.
And in the end, that's what people vote on. I mean, we like to think that we vote on social issues. We like to think that we vote on what's going on in terms of foreign policy. In the end, it comes down to, how much are we making? Can we afford to pay our bills? Can we afford to take care of the family? And what does our future look like? And let's face it, as Americans, we're not terribly good at the whole notion of economics. We somehow think that we elect an emperor rather than a president, and therefore, however the economy is doing at the time that someone is president, it falls upon them.
Yep.
They have to take responsibility for it. But the reality is that this is why we have campaigns. So yes, 2 years out, a year out, yes, the polls don't look very favorable. You want to know what to do about it? Go back and look at Barack Obama a year before he faced Mitt Romney. What did his poll numbers look like?
Almost the exact same.
Exactly. So, with the exception of George Bush Jr., because of 9/11 and the Iraq War, people tell him to galvanize around a president. Virtually everyone who's running in their second term, they're down a couple of years out, a year out. Why? Because they haven't begun their campaigns. They're actually working, and instead of campaigning. And campaigning is about the process of telling the American people what you've done for them and what your vision is for the country, what you plan to do for them. So when Biden gets out there and starts explaining to people that, this is what the infrastructure bill has done for you. This is what we've done to lower inflation. And inflation continues to come down. And what we've done to ensure labor rights. And all of these other things that we can talk about in terms of the accomplishments of for the working class in this country. I think you're going to see a big shift. That, and of course, Donald Trump is his own worst enemy. I don't understand either as to how people can continue to support him, but I have no doubt that moving forward, it's not as if his support's going to go up. It's only going to go down. The polling that was done this past week indicates that, yes, Americans don't love Joe Biden. It turns out they loved Donald Trump even less. So if there was some alternative third candidate, Americans claim that they would support them, but that's only a hypothetical. That's what I call the Jed Bartlett presidency.
Yeah.
You know, we all like to think that yes, Jed Bartlett would actually run for president. There would be somebody like that who was terribly intelligent and understood everything that goes on in the world and could govern by himself. Okay, that person doesn't exist. So in our minds, we like to think that they do, though. So it's going to come down to Joe Biden or Donald Trump. And honestly, as people understand, there's only about 5 swing states, and the things that you've articulated are the reasons why these places are swing states still. I mean, there was a time when nobody questioned Michigan that would be a swing state. Ohio, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. I mean, these were firmly Democratic camps. But again, as labor has been eroded in this country in terms of the labor movement, a lot of these people were never, socially liberal to begin with. So this idea that they were just going to continue to vote with us is absurd. The Republican Party came along and said, well, heck, Democrats aren't doing anything for you. That union gig is gone. Hey, look, I'll let you keep your gun, and I'll make sure that they continue to pray in your kids' school. And vote for us. And by the way, trickle-down economics, it'll get to you someday.
Yeah.
And that's what they offer them.
We just haven't done it enough, Steve. We haven't deregulated enough. We haven't cut taxes low enough. We haven't offshored enough manufacturing for it to really, really help. So we got to do it some more.
Yeah, because the Gilded Age was so wonderful for Americans. That over half of Americans lived hand to mouth. Working 15 hours a day, 6 days a week. Yes, that's exactly what we need to return to.
No, excellent point. Appreciate it, Steve. Thanks so much.
Take care.
And look, this idea that Biden is going to be the candidate, I have people wishing and hoping that he wouldn't be. I think he's going to be ultimately, because I think he's done enough to earn a second go. But this is why you're seeing, Gavin Newsom and J.B. Pritzker, cutting checks to candidates in mayoral races in Charleston, South Carolina. This is the reason that you're seeing them ramping up their profiles, which is why you see Newsom and DeSantis debating, and you see the Chinese stuff. They're hyping themselves up. Now they're saying for a 2028 run, because down the road, but they're kind of angling for what ifs. Because it's not assured. I don't know that it's assured. And look, the Republicans have shown us that they will stop at nothing to take out a Democratic president. And look, we've got a debt ceiling problem that's coming up. We've got an impeachment inquiry. That's I don't know what they're doing, but it's they're bent on it. They said it's coming. They got checks evidently. So it's going to be an interesting year. And I think when Biden goes and makes the adult case that I hope he will make, and I know he will make, that we're about investing in this country, we're about reshoring manufacturing, we're about leaving something for our children and our grandchildren, a legacy, and we're about making lives better. I think the American voters will, especially in those swing states, come around. But it's going to, 4 or 5 of them states can be really tough. And I will, I'll say it. The reality is our politics have gotten a lot crazier than just the kitchen table economic stuff. But we need to get back to it. Because reality, we're getting robbed blind. Working people are struggling because rich people are robbing us. Your thoughts after this. Stick around. I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1945. That was the day workers in Windsor, Ontario, walked off the job in a general strike to support strikers at Ford Motor Company. 20,000 CIO workers brought the city's industrial production to a complete standstill. 11,000 members of UAW Local 200 had been on strike against Ford since September 12th. They demanded a union shop and dues checkoff. As the strike wore on, picket lines swelled every day with as many as 1,000 to 2,000 amassing at the gates to stop scabs. Then, on this day, more than 9,000 additional members of Amalgamated UAW Local 195, working at 27 area plants, joined them in support. Thousands of picketers set up a blockade at Ford's riverfront plant that tied up the city's transit system. Sandwich Street was choked with cars, buses, and trucks. More than 1,000 cars were bumper to bumper in an endless traffic jam as strikers worked to prevent a police attack on the picket lines. The 2-mile blockade and general strike were in effect for 2 days until the government threatened to send in federal troops to aid provincial and Canadian police. Thousands continued to picket. By November 12th, AFL and CIO leaders throughout Canada were calling for a work holiday to show support. Then, on December 19th, workers agreed to binding arbitration. Supreme Court Justice Ivan Rand was assigned the case. He ruled against the closed shop, but for dues checkoff. He put forth a series of rules and penalties regarding labor disputes that would come to be known as the Rand Formula. It has served as the basis for labor relations and collective bargaining in Canada ever since. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show.
If you're trying to enact an extremist right-wing policy, but the public keeps rejecting it, what do? You could try blatant deception, giving the same old policy a new coat of paint, a euphemistic name, and a multi-million-dollar political shove. That's the dark path now being taken by the clique of plutocrats and theocrats who are determined to privatize America's public schools. Take Texas Governor Greg Abbott. Please. Joking aside, he's been pushing to make taxpayers fund private schools. But his own right-wing legislature has consistently rejected his power play. After all, even red state Republicans don't want for-profit chains and religious zealots grabbing tax dollars to indoctrinate school children. So this year, Abbott and Company rebranded their scheme as, quote, school choice and parental empowerment. Who could be against that? The people, it turns out. While some families might want exclusive private schools, their claim that they have no choice is a fraud. As one GOP legislator put it, his rural county has, quote, private schools, a parochial school, a charter school, and a large homeschool community. That is choice, he rightly notes. Who are the privatizers? National billionaires like the Koch brothers. And in Texas, we have Tim Dunn and Ferris Wilks, two messianic oil billionaires from West Texas who double as proselytizers of a toxic theology of Christian nationalism. They are the money gods of school privatization. Indeed, the governor, more than half of Texas House members, and every Republican state senator are financially hooked on their oil money. This is Jim Hightower saying, no matter what slogan the privatizers masquerade behind, their goal is simply to defund public schools and divert our education dollars from the common good to their corporate and theological academy. Ask yourself, what would Jesus do?
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So as we've been talking about the the trial today, quite entertaining from what I've read. Basically, the temper tantrum, giant S show, chaotic attack testimony that you would expect. Because look, he's already guilty, and if I'm the judge, I don't even make a warning. I just say, keep talking, make yourself, because ultimately the judge is going to decide the penalty. So let him continue to attack and attack, because it's only going to cost him more in the long run. I mean, it's kind of, I guess politically it's a smart thing to do, but from a business standpoint, really stupid. Unless they're trying to set up an appeal down the road of saying, I don't know. It's an interesting defense. I hate you, Judge, is an interesting defense. And here to share some thoughts on, the top stories of the day, including the Trump-Kea victim testimony. I've asked our good friend Rich Ojeda to come talk with us. Rich is the host of Ojeda Live, a nightly hit on Facebook and YouTube. Weeknights, 8:30 p.m., just before our program. Rich, thanks for taking time for us.
Anytime, Rick. Always enjoy being on your show. I got a meme that I saw that I want to say real quick, okay?
Hit me.
It says, is anyone else finding it ironic that the family who has branded themselves as the smartest businessmen in the history of the world are now claiming that they know nothing about the family business as their defense in court? Art of the deal. Yeah. Art of the steal. I mean, think about that. I mean, they claim to be literally the gurus in business, and the only thing that they've really done is fleece people and lie and cheat and steal. So yeah, that's where we're at here.
Yeah, but I look at it. The reality is he's already guilty. The judge already found them guilty because through some, I don't know if it was a choice. I had heard they missed the deadline, but through some bizarre way, they ended up getting a bench trial, and it was a very short kind of thing where the judge decided, yeah, you're guilty. You committed fraud.
Well, I mean, Elena Haba supposedly checked the box bench trial and not jury trial. And because of that, Judge Ingeron looked at all the evidence and basically come to the conclusion that, yes, they're guilty. So now it's all about how much they're going to be required to pay back. And once again, I know that I've already heard one number in just a couple banks, something like $168 million. And that's not the insurance companies. There's other banks. I mean, there's the possibility that they could shut down literally over 50 LLCs because everything that Donald Trump does goes under LLCs. They're going to be ran out of New York. And to be honest with you, it couldn't happen to a better family. They're garbage.
Do you find it ironic that the Republicans are attacking the Biden family for having LLCs and shell corporations and all the things that they were doing when Trump has done the same thing only on steroids?
Well, isn't it ironic that they're claiming that Hunter Biden is the most corrupt person ever, and yet Jared Kushner and Ivanka Trump made literally about $460 million while working for the government? And of course, now $2 billion account that he gets paid like $50 million a year to manage. I mean, that's it. They're throwing stones. They're basically saying, don't look over here, look over there at the Bidens. And it's absolute garbage. I tell you, it breaks my heart because by now I really believe that the majority of America would have woken up by now and had realized that they had been duped. And once again, it's he's still in this, and he shouldn't be.
And look, I look at this testimony, and I had a bunch of friends say, "Oh, he's toast now." I'm going, I don't think so. This testimony plays to his base, plays to people who have been, they feel have been wronged by this system. He's a guy who's standing up and calling out the system. He doesn't care. He's a daredevil. And you go,
I mean, it's sad. It's sad that he's been able to continue going down this path and to continue with the hold that he has on so many people in this country. It's really sad, and like I think that Joe Biden should blow this next election out of the park. And right now we're listening to polling that says that literally he's behind in a few key states, and that bothers me. That makes me feel like nobody's paying attention.
And I got to tell you, there's part of me that goes, I think I want this. I think I want people to believe Biden's so far behind because I think maybe it wakes people up to the reality of that we better stop our petty bickering. We better put down the divisive, stuff that tears us apart and get on the same page because what could happen in 2025 is much worse than any of the things that we disagree with on the Democratic side at all.
Well, we already know that Donald Trump has already started to put together a list of those that he's going to go after if he is elevated to the presidency ever again. And I mean, we're talking about John Kelly, Bill Barr, we're talking about General Milley. I mean, literally, Donald Trump is literally saying, if I win, we're going to go after these people. And literally, that's the mentality that Donald Trump has. And what's sad is that there's a lot of people out there that they eat that up. They think that's great. No. They think that, for the first time ever, we've got a president that speaks the way we do. Well, let me tell you something. If you got a president that speaks on a third grade level, that's not who you want. It's not who you want.
No, I say it all the time. I want someone a lot smarter than me leading this country. And clearly he was not that guy. But here's the thing, and I come back to this. This victim card that he's playing does play to people. It plays to their sympathy. He's somehow, this guy is now framed himself as the underdog, that he's fighting, he's the victim, there's this witch hunt that's coming after him, and he's doing this all for you, the little guy. He cares about you poor working stiffs so much that he's willing to make millions of dollars while he was in the White House and try and get away with cheating people. But he's fighting for you.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the sad part is, I come from Southern West Virginia. And actually, I lived very, very close to Eastern Kentucky when I was growing up. That's where I'm from. And I'm going to tell you that it breaks my heart that that's literally his base. I mean, they literally believe that Donald Trump was sent by God. Now Donald Trump isn't even hiding it when he goes to these events and stuff. I mean, he's screaming the slur words like crazy. And I mean, at the end of the day, you're thinking, well, are these Christians listening to him? Use his vulgarity? They don't care. They don't care. And it's really, really sad, because I will tell you that if Donald Trump is elevated, and I'm hoping that he's not even in this race, I believe that he's going to get found guilty in both Fonnie Willis and the January 6th. But my thing is that if he is elevated to the presidency ever again, that's it for us. We will never have another presidential race. We will be done. We will become a dictatorship. And I guarantee you that if Donald Trump ever gets in that position, the first thing he's going to say is, well, I get 2 more terms because I was cheated out of my first one. That's what he's going to do. He will never, ever leave. He will die in that position. And the truth is I want him to die in a different place. I want him to die in prison, because that's where he deserves to be.
But here's the thing. I mean, do you think the American people, and I know this is I know this is a dumb question, so I'm going to ask it anyway. Do you think the American people would tolerate that? I mean, we've had some norms of, 2 terms, that's it. I think I know the answer.
I mean, think about it. Will they tolerate? I mean, right now they're literally tolerating Donald Trump now, to the point where polling is showing that he's moving ahead. So apparently somebody's tolerating his garbage. At the end of the day, that's why, I keep telling people, educate yourself. I do my show, you do your show. We're trying to wake people up. And, the sad part about it is a lot of people don't want to be woke up. There's a lot of people out there that believe that Donald Trump hates the people that we hate, and therefore we're standing with him.
Yeah.
And that's where it's at. It's pure racism. And it drives me crazy when I see Hispanics for Trump, Latinos for Trump. I mean, Donald Trump has also said that if he is elevated to the presidency again, he's going to have the biggest, basically kick people out of this country. And who do you think he's going to kick out? He's going to kick out the people that are light brown, the people from Mexico, the people from the Caribbean. He's going to get rid of all those people. And he's telling everybody what he's going to do.
No, you got that. And he'll be on the retribution tour. He's going to get revenge.
Yep.
And people like you and me better look out. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. We're with Rich Ojeda. Rich is the host of Ojeda Live, a nightly 8:30 p.m. hit on Facebook and YouTube. You can check that out. He's also the chief cook and bottle washer over at the Turn Left PAC, helping to get Democrats elected to office to help, keep our democracy. You can check that out at turnleftpac.org. Got to get your thoughts on the looming shutdown. I mean, we're ticking down to, what is it, the 17th of November. Funds run out. So again, we're doing the ticking bomb thing, and it doesn't look like anything's going to get done this week. So it should be an interesting adventure next. Any thoughts?
I mean, I look for the Republicans to say that, the only way we're going to fund the government is if you give Donald Trump a path. I don't know. I nothing would surprise me. And, at the end of the day, we really do need to stop just kicking the can down the road. And this is another reason why it's important that we need to absolutely not only take back the House with a vengeance, but we need to increase the lead that we have in the Senate so that no matter what, we can guarantee that the legislation that we want can pass both houses. I mean, we need ethics in the Supreme Court. There's just so much stuff that we need in this country. And we need people that are willing to solve problems, not kick them down the road. And that's all the that's all the Republicans are doing. Remember, the Republicans have been in charge now for 11 months. They haven't pushed and passed a single bill. All they've done is go after a private citizen. And that's where we're at. So I think that people should wake up and realize that the Republicans don't exactly get things done, and that's why we need to replace every one of them in Congress with a Democrat, and we can finally get stuff done.
There you go. But I look at this. I look at this again. We're butting up against running out of money. We're going to shut the government down, which didn't go well for Republicans last time around. But, they've got a Democrat in the White House they can blame it on. But I only see a couple paths forward. One of them is you're going to have to pass a clean bill that'll get us at least into next year, which shouldn't be that difficult if you had sane, rational people, but you clearly don't on the Republican side. What the Republicans want is they want massive across-the-board cuts while accepting defense, and Democrats aren't going to go for that. Or the thing that I'm curious your thoughts on this kind of what they're calling a laddered CR that the speaker floated last week, which would cut funding to certain agencies as it got longer. So we'd cut food stamps, for children and starve kids out. And then we'd go after Granny and, kick her to the curb. And then we'd work our way through government attacking, people who are the most vulnerable first, because clearly they're the ones who are going to hurt the most. And then work your way up to rich people. I'm curious, which of the three do you think can get done?
Well, the sad part about it is we know that Trump's tax breaks for the rich account for a quarter of our national debt. But make no mistake about it, the Republicans aren't going to do anything to stop those. So they're looking at Social Security, Medicare, they're looking at free lunch programs. I mean, that's what the Republicans want to do. They want to hurt people. And at the end of the day, that's why it's important that people get off their backsides, get involved in these races. Voting is not the only thing that you got to do. You got to make phone calls. You got to make sure you drive people to the polls. Because, once again, these guys, they're going to go after the people that will be hurt the most. They're going to go after the free lunch programs. They're going to go after Social Security. I tell people all the time, there's so many people that I know from West Virginia that should have retired already, but their retirement got stolen from them because their coal operator filed for bankruptcy. So now they had to file for Social Security, and they're living off of that. And it's barely making it from payday to payday. Barely. They're eking out a living, and nobody wants to live like that. But make no mistake about it, the powers that be right now that are in charge of the House of Representatives want to cut even that. And anybody out there, you can act like you're a Trump supporter, and if all you're doing is struggling with Social Security, you don't even know what you're doing to yourself. You're shooting yourself in the daggone foot. Fact.
There's part of me, and I remember in 2016 I was handing out literature on Election Day for a friend who was running as a Democrat in a highly, highly red area. And I was handing out literature to people in line, and there was one guy that caught my attention. And he was all decked out in Trump stuff. Had the hat, the shirt, the flag. He was a walking Trump billboard. But he was dragging along an oxygen tank. He was probably in his late 50s. A guy who was on Social Security disability, and I remember saying to him, going, "You do realize that these people want to destroy what is keeping you alive?" And there's part of me, and this is the bad part of me. This is the part I don't like, Rich. That you go, maybe we give them what they want, let them destroy all these programs, and let these people suffer. But here again, I know good people are going to suffer in the process as well. So I struggle with it. But there's part of me that goes, you get what you deserve.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's kind of like, when somebody comes to me and gives me this big, long sob story, the first question I want to ask is, who'd you vote for? Because if you voted for Donald Trump, good, you deserve it. You knew they were going to take it. You knew that they would rather cut your food stamps than they would ever do anything to go back on the tax breaks for the rich. So, once again, if you're not smart enough to really start to pay attention, then you're probably going to get a rude awakening if this ever happens. I talk about the dictatorship that Donald Trump wants. If we go down this path, I'm telling you right now, it's going to hurt a lot of people. And a lot of those people are going to be the ones that fought the hardest for Donald Trump. If you think that a man who owns his own 747 and goes to bathroom on a golden toilet needs you and your neighbors to get together and put your nickels together to support him, if you believe that, then you're too stupid. And the truth is we should actually have an exam that would at least make sure somebody's on a certain level to be able to even vote.
Let's not go down that path, Rich. I want to get your thoughts real quick. We're going to bang through a couple of things. The Virginia legislature, the big Tuesday election coming up. Which way do you see the Virginia legislature going?
Well, I really hope that the Democrats show out, understand, everybody needs to be thinking about Roe v. Wade, things like that. The governor is, we know that they're going to, hurt people if they stay in power. So let's hope that, Virginia can flip blue.
I want to get your thoughts on the abortion issue in Ohio, the constitutional issue there. How do you see that going? Polling has it passing.
Do what now?
Polling has the issue passing. Any thoughts?
Passing on what?
Making basically Ohio a Roe state.
Well, I hope so, but I think that would happen in every single state. For the most part, we pretty much know that people support Roe v. Wade.
Right.
One of the heat rounds that the Republicans are taking right now is their stance against and basically making it illegal in many states. It has really come out to harm them. So I'm hoping that people wake up. I hope that it becomes a Roe state. I think that that's one of the reasons why we got to stay in this fight, and hopefully we can make it across the country again. Put it back, and then solidify it.
Lastly, does Mississippi get a Democratic governor?
Man, you know what? When it comes to Mississippi, it's hard to tell. It's just, I don't know, man. It's tough. Let's hope. I don't know. I really don't know.
There you go.
It's hard to tell with Mississippi.
I was hoping for a positive yes. It's going to be a blowout.
It's like the poorest states that have the least education are the ones that literally vote Republican. West Virginia is like it too. West Virginia and Mississippi are 49th and 50th in almost everything. And people don't realize that if it wasn't for other states, you would starve. So maybe you may need some different leadership. I don't know. It's just me.
Just a thought. But Rich, I appreciate the time. Great stuff, man.
Thanks, brother. Always a pleasure.
Our good friend Rich Ojeda. Make sure you check out his Facebook and YouTube live program every weeknight, 8:30. Ojeda Live. I want to hear your thoughts. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Gonna take a quick break. Right back after this. Stick around. Listen to The Rick Smith Show.
The phone lines are open. Give Rick a call at 1-866-416-RICK. That's 1-866-416-7425.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1982. That was the day that 11 women graduated from the New York City Fire Academy. They were the first women firefighters ever to serve in the city of New York since the department was founded in 1865. The inclusion of women firefighters did not come easily in New York. In 1977, for the first time, women were allowed to apply to be firefighters. Although many women had passed the written part of the exam, they were continually denied employment because they failed the physical test. The women sued citing discrimination. One of the leaders of the suit was applicant Brenda Berman. The federal district court in Brooklyn sided with the women. Not everyone was happy about the decision. A group of demonstrators came to City Hall before the graduation with signs reading, quote, "I want to be saved by firemen." The Uniformed Firefighters Association also challenged the ruling. They tried to block the ceremony in the courts, arguing that training requirements had been changed to accommodate the women. Despite the legal challenges, the ceremony went on as scheduled. In his speech, Mayor Ed Koch said, quote, "As all of us have known all along, bravery and valor know no sex." After the graduation, the controversy over women firefighters continued. The women often faced sexual harassment on the job and vilification on the editorial pages of the city's newspapers. Bumper stickers reading, quote, "Don't send a girl to do a man's job," could be seen on the car bumpers of many male firefighters and at the city's firehouses. The women firefighters stood up to the harassment, testifying before the city council and holding street demonstrations to bring awareness to the discrimination.
You're listening to The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.
Got an email, and interesting point. You know, could it be that people think the economy is not doing well because the help that they were getting that helped during the pandemic was taken away? You know, could it be that child tax credit did really help people and help them afford things that they can't now afford? Could it be that the Republicans, and along with Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin, who denied the extension of the child tax credit and allowed it to expire, could that be part of it? And the answer, yeah, that's a big part of it. And they did it specifically because of that. Now, there were a couple people like Manchin who were like, well, we don't want people to get too dependent on government. We don't want people who are going to get too used to eating, because those kids, they may get used to it. And for me, I got to tell you, right before Christmas to have it expire is like the cruelest of all. I mean, that was, for me, I understand Republicans are going to do this. And Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema, yeah, put them in that camp too. I understand that's their ideology. We need people to be hungry so they'll work harder and they'll pull themselves up by their bootstraps or whatever nonsense they tell themselves they believe. But the cruelest part is what I said, from the beginning. When I was a kid growing up in the projects, and look, our cupboards were bare, at the end of almost every month. Had you given my mother an extra couple of bucks to make it to the end of the month, to make it easier, to make life a little bit better, that would have been really helpful. But I didn't know any better. I didn't know that there was another way. So it was like, this is how everybody lives. This is reality. That at the end of the month, you got to ration throughout the whole month so that you can spread out limited resources for the entire month. You learn to be very creative with limited resources, because this is what poor people have to deal with. But to go, hey, here's a different way, and to introduce the possible and have people go, oh, this is great, and then to yank it away right before Christmas, of course, because that's what Jesus would do. That seems cruelest of all. And I've talked about this myself. I mean, I don't know how I would have responded to that. Anger, most certainly. But who at? And the sad reality is it's the guy who holds the top job a lot of times. Which is why I think you are seeing some of the minority communities who do struggle with higher than average poverty rates, who are having a hard time. Because the help that was there, that made their lives a little bit easier, that allowed them to have their children go to bed not being hungry, is not there anymore. And who do you blame? You blame the top guy. Buck stops where? On the president's desk. Even though he had no control over it. He wanted it to pass. He lobbied for its passage. Republicans and Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin said no. And I was just telling my daughter this today. I go, one of the reason that we had kids so much later than most of my friends had to do with, I wanted to ensure that we were financially stable. That I never wanted to have to look into the eyes of my children and know that they were hungry. And there's nothing I could do, like my mother had to do. And yet here we are in a country, the richest country in the history of civilization, with a child poverty rate that just doubled. 60% increase. Because of who? Republicans.
There was an amber alert in place overnight, but no one anticipated this deluge.
Storm Kieran, latest to rapidly intensify before slamming into the UK and France. Human activities are making the earth saltier, and not in a good way. Plus,
today I'm proud to announce new funding that will go directly to rural communities to fix aging critical rural infrastructure like electricity, water, wastewater systems that haven't been replaced in decades.
Biden launches major investments in America's farm country to boost resilience and fight climate change.
All of that major news and more straight ahead from BradBlog.com. I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
Stand by for 6 minutes of independent green news, politics, analysis, and snarky comment.
The windmills are driving them crazy. They're driving the whales, I think, a little batty.
Sir? Do you happen to live near a windmill? Just wondering. This is your Green News Report. Okay, Desi Doyen, here we go again with another storm rapidly intensifying, this time on a whole other part of the world.
Yes, unfortunately, as we go to air, Storm Kieran is lashing the UK and northern France with hurricane-force winds after undergoing explosive rapid intensification driven by record-warm ocean waters in the North Atlantic. Kieran is the second big storm in a week to slam into the UK. Warm oceans are also intensifying its rainfall, triggering renewed flooding in areas with already saturated ground. Scientists link the ocean heat and unusually warm global temperatures to human-caused climate change.
And they had no idea what was coming because of rapid intensification.
And now the Earth is getting saltier because humanity is messing with the Earth's salt cycle with potentially dangerous consequences. That's according to a first-of-its-kind study this week in the journal Nature. Salts like calcium, magnesium, and regular table salt that are used in agriculture, mining, industry, and road salt treatments all are increasing salt concentrations in places where they don't normally occur. It's contaminating aquifers, corroding lead water pipes, affecting soils, freshwater lakes and rivers, crop production, and even the air. The researchers warn that excess salt is, quote, an existential threat to freshwater supplies across the U.S.
Now we have to be worried about salt.
In better news, this week the Biden Interior Department approved the largest offshore wind project yet for the U.S., 27 miles off the coast of Virginia. It is the fifth massive wind farm cleared to begin construction in U.S. waters and will ultimately power nearly 1 million homes.
Well, have they asked the whales about that?
However, the approval comes amid economic turbulence that's causing wind developers to delay projects along the East Coast. This week, Danish wind power developer Ørsted canceled 2 offshore wind projects off the coast of New Jersey, citing supply chain bottlenecks and high interest rates that are raising costs. The cancellations are a victory for anti-wind energy groups backed by fossil fuel interests that quickly formed to oppose the offshore wind projects and falsely blamed whale deaths on those wind projects.
Their windmills are causing whales to die in numbers never seen before. They're washing up ashore. I saw it this weekend. 3 of them came up. You wouldn't see it once a year. Now they're coming up on a weekly basis. The windmills are driving them crazy.
Federal and independent scientific data indicate that most whale deaths are caused by commercial shipping and fishing gear entanglement.
No, it's the windmills that are driving them batty. Everybody knows it.
In other actions, the administration also overcame decades of drilling industry resistance to begin regulating nearly 500,000 miles of what are known as natural gas gathering pipelines for the first time ever, requiring leak detection and safety measures near residential areas, which the industry is not happy about.
You mean we did not used to inspect them for leaks near houses?
Yep, finally. President Biden traveled to Minnesota this week to unveil $5 billion in new investments directly in rural America. Funding from the Inflation Reduction Act and the Infrastructure Law will go to replace aging rural water and electric infrastructure, expand high-speed internet, and help farmers fight climate change and diversify by harvesting renewable energy.
We're investing nearly $20 billion to help farmers and ranchers tackle climate crisis through climate-smart agriculture and cover crops, nutrient management, reducing greenhouse gas emissions while improving overall health of the soil and the water.
Did you hear that, farmers and ranchers? Did you hear who's actually helping you out? For much more on all of these stories and the ones we couldn't get to today, check out our website at greennews.bradblog.com. Find, follow, and share us planet-wide on the Facebooks, Mastodons, and sites still known as Twitter at Green News Report.
Are you tired of think tank approved corporate news and commentary? Are you tired of CEOs telling you what to think, who to hate, and who to vote for? Well, welcome to the Rick Smith Show. We don't take orders from some boardroom, and we don't do focus groups or talking points. We don't work for them, and we never will. I'm Rick Smith, and I work for you. Join us daily at thericksmithshow.com and download the podcast and never miss a minute.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So, I remember the Occupy years. In fact, we spent a lot of time in Harrisburg at the encampment there, made our way to Zuccotti Park in New York. A couple of times we're there. And, I remember at the time the mainstream media said, oh, this is just a bunch of hippies who, a bunch of, do-nothings who have no agenda. And the reality is, if you'd have paid attention, they were doing some really important organizing and had a very clear agenda. I don't know how the 99% versus the 1% got missed in all of that, but I'd say out of that whole organizing across the country brought us to where we are today. And here to talk about how we got from there to here is a guy who's actually written the book, Be the Revolution, How Occupy Wall Street and the Bernie Sanders Movement Reshaped American Politics, written by Jay Ponte. You can check that out at jponte.com or betherevolution.us. Jay, thanks for taking time for us.
Brother Rick, thanks for having me on. Working class hero.
So I'm in this spot where, I remember the Occupy days very well. We spent a lot of time, a lot of overnights, talking about what we wanted, what we were building towards, with the future we wanted to have, and I think the groundwork of organizing that we're kind of seeing bear fruit right now in the labor movement, as you're seeing more people wanting unions, more people striking, and I think that's kind of what your book's about, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, first off, this book is supposed to sort of challenge the general mythos that Occupy failed and Bernie Sanders came out of the free market because he appealed to unrealistic millennials. And really this book smashes that narrative because we can see a through line from Occupy. We can see the impact that Occupy had in fundamentally changing the consciousness of this country. And then you see all of the people who were activated. It was such a powerful activation. And the book actually references Occupy Harrisburg directly with our friend and brother, Brett Banditelli. So there's a whole chapter about how Occupy activists, some people, left Occupy having seen how the state coordinated with the mayors, coordinated with private industry to really crush us, coordinated with the police to crush the movement. And that was a really profound awakening. For me, I had a moment where I was at the occupation in LA and Los Angeles, and I got hit in the ribs with a baton. And that was a huge moment for me where, it really, shifted my worldview leftward. But at the same time, you remember, while we were getting our asses handed to us by jackbooted, cops, we saw, 83 or 84 people got elected to Congress with the Tea Party, with their wackadoodle movement. And so some people like Brett Banditelli, Charles Lenchner, and the People for Bernie came away from Occupy knowing that there needed to be a twofold strategy where we also occupied the structures of power and proceeded to, enroll Bernie Sanders. You also had Tim Carpenter and PDA trying to push Bernie to run. They activated the Occupy network to create 99's events for the 99%, which really became the movement ahead of Bernie before he even declared. And this is profoundly important, and we can definitely trace a through line through the modern labor movement that we're seeing now.
Yeah, no, but this is history repeating itself. You go back, into the the 1880s and the organizing that laid its tracks into the 20s and until eventually the 30s, where you got the Fair Labor Standards Act and you got some the National Labor Relations Act, and you got a lot of legislation that helped create the most prosperous working class in history. That didn't just happen. that happened because people were in the streets for decades organizing and fighting for change. And I saw Occupy as kind of the beginning of that. Them, the Home Defenders League, a bunch of organizations throughout these last couple of decades that have really fought to bring people to the public square.
Well, and if you remember too, like we also talk about how the progressive movement. Now think about it in context with the neoliberals, the third way Democrats, and then a post 9/11 world. So 9/11 really shook anything resembling a populist leftist movement, really shook it to its core. And you also have, the neoliberals, the third way Democrats, really taking control and basically, kind of becoming the Republican light. And so until Dennis Kucinich's campaign, and then out of that, you see the out of the convention in 2004, you see Tim Carpenter form PDA, and Charles Lenchner was also part of that. And you have the birth of what you might call the progressive movement. But really, like, take it in context. It was not a big time for before Occupy. You couldn't even any frame about the oligarchy or the billionaire class would be framed as class war, and not in a good way.
Oh no,
right?
I know. Look,
talk about these things.
We started this radio program in 2005, and one of the things that I had mentioned to a prospective funder, I had gone a union, a big union, and I'm not going to name it, but a big union representing 1 million plus. So that narrows it down to a very few. I said, we want to take on the neoliberals. And we want to take on that whole neoliberal agenda. We want to return power and the whole class war stuff. And he said to me, leaned in, he goes, a lot of our friends are neoliberals. And clearly, obviously, we didn't get any funding from him. But, it was that the power, that agenda had risen to that level.
I'm shocked. That's shocking to me.
No, you're not. But that's the point. I mean, it had taken such hold that even an organization that was supposed to be fighting that had already accepted it.
Yep, absolutely. And eventually, like as we get to the end of the book, you can see the birth of, in a post burning 2016, 2020 world, we really see that energy continued, and really helped a lot of those organizers. A lot of the Bernie organizers went on to help give birth to the ALU and, the Starbucks a lot of a lot of the energy around the rebirth of American labor. And you also see a big sort of a battle between the rank and file and the bottom up energy, and that sort of top down old school, the bosses who became very entrenched in the establishment, in the political establishment, and decades of selling out the American worker, which I think Thomas Frank really deftly broke down his book Listen Liberal. I think that was also a great book that people should read.
No, but you could also look at Joe Biden. Joe Biden was a classic neoliberal. I mean, he was, for decades, he was there. He was on the free trade kicks. He was on all of that stuff. And now he's the guy, and we could agree or disagree, but he seems to be the guy that is pushing back against neoliberalism, not a huge way, not outwardly, but the talk of reshoring manufacturing, the talk of investing and having an infrastructure and an industrial policy, that unheard of.
Yeah, and I think that also the IRA, so anything that has been won, it must be understood though that let's just say Occupy and those Bernie Sanders campaigns never happened, we would be looking at a very, very different Biden administration. Correct. A very different one. So that is only because of the energy awakened by working class people, by people who are fighting for progressive values, and that is really coming out of, you can really trace that back. And I think you can, make a strong, I also suggest that the WTO battle for Seattle in '99 was an important trigger point. But you can trace this lineage definitely back to Occupy, and you can see how that reverberated, and the people who were awakened, they tried to bury us, but we were seeds. It didn't. Occupy never failed. People from Occupy went on to do strike debt and to organize for $15 minimum wage, which of course is too low. But, in 2011, that was still considered a revolutionary idea. And you can see gains made. We won public banking in California. That should have never happened, but we won. Like a small group of us, the California Public Banking Alliance, actually passed public banking on a state level, which should never have happened. So yeah, we could go on and on to see the influence that Occupy's had over the last 10 or 12 years.
You listen to the Rick Smith Show with Jay Ponte. He's the author of Be the Revolution, How Occupy Wall Street and the Bernie Sanders Movement Reshaped American Politics. You can find that at betherevolution.us. You can also check out Jay Ponte's website at jponte.com. We'll get links out on social media, how you can take a look at that. One of the things that I talk about here on my program, as I've been doing this since Labor Day of 2005, and the first interview that I did on my own was with Bernie Sanders back when he was a congressman that nobody knew. He was the only independent congressman, had been the longest serving independent. And that Bernie is the same Bernie that you hear today, talking about the same kind of worker empowerment, the same kind of working class issues. And that's what I love about Bernie, is he hasn't really changed on the issues. They've just got him nicer clothes and combed his hair a little bit. But
he still looks like he combs his hair with a balloon.
But they did dress him up a little bit. But it's the issues for me that were most important back then and still today. So how do we move this forward? Because clearly Bernie's not the future of the movement. Where is the future? Where do we go from here? And I know you guys do some activist training around this to get people on board. What does that look like?
So for me, one of the things that the book distinguishes is the Bernie campaign from the movement. And this should be understood because they're very different things. I had a chance to work with the campaign in both 2016 and 2020 as a surrogate organizer and wrangler. But it should be understood that those are distinct things. And Bernie, because of his policy platform, was that the campaign itself was a lightning rod for climate justice, for health justice, for economic justice, for all of these, for racial justice, so all these issues, and it created this giant tent movement. So, but for me, like once the Bernie campaign in 2016 and 2020 dissipated, broke up, was over, we really saw there was some fracturing. For me, the theory of change is we really must understand that the movement against immoral wars, the movement against the emerging oligarchy, for economic justice, for Medicare for all, for climate justice, as we're moving into the climate apocalypse full steam, the movement for labor, these are all interdependent, and we have to disavow the idea that, number one, some politician is going to save us. They're not. It is really up to us. There's one thing I think Occupy got wrong, is that, we said there are no leaders. When I think really the takeaway should have been we were all leaders, because that is the truth. And I think the pathway forward really comes down to, first, I tend to focus on the local level. It's very hard to move the needle on a federal level. It's very difficult to make change on a federal level, but it is astonishing how much change you can make at a municipal and state level. So I always recommend, getting the organizers for those movements together, having them understand that these issues are interlinked. It's part of the same fight. And it's not a new idea. It's, Fred Hampton's Rainbow Coalition. But yeah, we're going around the country doing trainings, bringing these local activists together, which shockingly are often not working together at all, to help them create a framework and create the solidarity so that they can make changes on a policy level and build people power. So that's really the theory of change that we're advocating.
See, as a labor guy, I keep saying that, if you want to reunite this country, reunionize it. Get people together in a room, fighting for a common goal, better wages, hours, conditions, opportunities, that kind of stuff. And then everything else will find its way to being figured out once you're in the same room heading in a similar direction. Does this idea play into what you're talking about?
Absolutely. I mean, labor is an enormous component of that. It's a huge component. And in some ways, a lot of these other movements are very anarchic, decentralized. There isn't strong, structural leadership. Unions have more of that. They tend to they're better financed, they're better organized. They've been doing it forever. They've already built power. And I think it's how it plays in is seeing more of that power shift to the rank and file. And I think we're seeing that in real time. There have been some real battles within the labor movement, seeing that the power is not just controlled by some of the union bosses, but is also, you were seeing the rank and file have more autonomy and more influence in the collective bargaining process.
Well, I think you saw that with the UAW strike. I think you saw that with the UAW strike, and Sean Fain saying, "Look, it's not about me; it's about the members," and that's that. And the same thing with Sean O'Brien with the Teamsters. The Teamsters fought that fight years ago to get one person, one vote to reclaim their power, and I think it has done a reasonable job of getting decent contracts and moving us in a positive direction. But again, I come back to the idea that, if we're gonna reunite this country, it's got to be done where we all, have something similar that we're fighting for. And I think wages, hours, conditions, the important part of this. If someone wanted to get involved and take one of these trainings or outside of buying the book, and I highly suggested, it's Be the Revolution, How Occupy Wall Street and the Bernie Sanders Movement Reshaped American Politics by Jay Ponte. We'll get links out on social media, or just check out the website, betherevolution.us.
Yeah, so the best way is if they go on Be the Revolution, there's a free bonus chapter. If you sign up for that bonus chapter, it's basically an autopsy of why Trump won. And spoiler alert, neoliberalism has a lot to do with it. It was based on an article I wrote called 27 Reasons That Trump Won That Have Nothing to Do with Susan Sarandon. But if you sign up for and download that chapter, your email will be registered. And you can reach out to me directly and let me know where you're at. And we're going to plan a national tour. So if you're in Des Moines or Boston or Atlanta, let me know where you're at. And if you want to be part of organizing something in your city, let us know. We'd love to help.
No, that would be fantastic. I hope people will check out that site, betherevolution.us, and also your site, jponte.com. We'll get links out on social media. Now I got an email here, just popped into my box, and it's kind of lengthy, and I don't want to go through all of it, but because there are a lot of words that I'm not allowed to say on radio. But this person's saying that the Bernie movement is the reason that Trump got elected. Thoughts?
Oh, first off, I would really highly recommend either you can just go on and Google 27 Reasons Trump Won That Have Nothing to Do with Susan Sarandon, or you can download sort of an edited, it's a little more of a polished chapter on betherevolution.us. And I answer that in about there's an 80,000 word, breakdown and autopsy. And we have to look at the facts. The facts are actually Bernie supporters showed up to vote for Secretary Clinton in greater numbers than Hillary Clinton supporters showed up to vote for Obama in 2008. Okay, so the numbers are actually really clear. I really recommend looking at that chapter because I get into it very deep. We look at a lot of factors from her net favorables to the fact that the Democratic Party spent $1 billion on consultants who gave sage advice like, don't campaign in Wisconsin or Michigan, and
hold a rush hour concert with Bruce Springsteen in Philadelphia.
Yeah, exactly. Like we have to also get past the point that in 2016, a populist was always going to win. And the way that populism goes is it either goes FDR, where we working class people stand up for economic inequality, or it goes the way of the strongman and Hitler. So FDR or Hitler. And, one of the cautionary tales of this book is that if you stifle healthy populist movements, you get Trump or DeSantis or some fascist who's even worse. There's an entire chapter on who is behind QAnon and the insurrection, and it is a cautionary tale because you can see directly how the stifling of these movements and campaigns led to created a lane for the neo-fascist to take over. So
good stuff. Again, the book Be the Revolution by Jay Ponte. We'll get links out on social media how you can take a look at that. Jay, great talking with you. I hope you'll come back and talk to us again real soon.
Anytime. I love it. Love talking about the working man. Well, working people, we'll say.
There you go.
The
Thanks so much,
class,
Jay.
The 99%. Thanks, Rick.
Appreciate it. Again, make sure you check out the book, Be the Revolution. BeTheRevolution.us. Going to take a quick break. Right back after this. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. We're working people. Come to talk.
We are AFGE, the American Federation of Government Employees. We represent 700,000 federal and D.C. government workers who are the vital threads of the fabric of American life. We support our nation's military. We take care of our nation's veterans. We protect our nation's borders. We respond to our nation's crises and natural disasters. We provide services to our nation's seniors. The American Federation of Government Employees. We work for America.
We are AFGE, the American Federation of Government Employees. We represent 700,000 federal and D.C. government workers who are the vital threads of the fabric of American life. We support our nation's military. We take care of our nation's veterans. We protect our nation's borders. We respond to our nation's crises and natural disasters. We provide services to our nation's seniors. The American Federation of Government Employees. We work for America.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So again, make sure you check out the book, Be the Revolution, BeTheRevolution.us, if you want to take a look at it. And look, I remember the Occupy days. Like I said, we spent a lot of time in those places, talking to the people who were there. The thing that was annoying to me, and I got to be honest, was the chanting, the people's mic. And I know people loved it, but it just seemed like such a difficult way to get just people to talk. And I think some people, and this was the part that that got me, is you'd have some people who would stand up and talk just to hear people repeat their words. But the organizing that came out of that was, I think, really important and really incredible. And you needed that. And I remember saying at the time, this may not change the world, but it's going to be the seeds that spring what will change. And the fact that it was hyper local, I say all the time, if you want to change the world, change your little piece of it. It's that simple. And this has started to do it. Now, look, the big money, honestly, they control everything we see, hear, and read. The reason that you see some of the polling happening the way it's been going has been, the fact that they've saturated the airwaves. You've got the F channel and Newsmax and, One News and this and that. Every right-wing corporate neoliberal mouthpiece out there spewing off the same page. It's very infrequent that working people get working class news, which is why I think it's so important that we still read books like Jay's book, and I highly suggest it. But again, I come back to this idea. We have to come back together. And when I say we need to reunionize our workplaces, I believe that. Because look, we don't have to agree on every issue, but we do have to find that common thread, that thing that's going to bring us back into the same room and off the sidewalks, yelling at each other and out of our silos and out of destroying each other and figuring out how we're going to get better opportunities. And do you know why? Because right now we're being robbed blind. I mean, if you look at what came out of this pandemic, the fact that we didn't have the ability to ensure that working people got a fair shake during the pandemic, we were told to stay home. They didn't. Did they pay you to stay home? No. You know who got paid? Our billionaire class. In fact, the numbers of what they get, like $4 trillion in additional wealth over the pandemic, while the working class lost like $3.7 trillion. That's because we don't have power in the halls of power. And that's where this kind of organizing, that's where, this kind of movement, I'm hoping brings us back together to give us that power. But I want to hear your thoughts. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. It's interesting times. Back after this. Stick around. I'm Rick Smith. and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1982. That was the day that 11 women graduated from the New York City Fire Academy. They were the first women firefighters ever to serve in the city of New York since the department was founded in 1865. The inclusion of women firefighters did not come easily in New York. In 1977, for the first time, women were allowed to apply to be firefighters. Although many women had passed the written part of the exam, they were continually denied employment because they failed the physical test. The women sued citing discrimination. One of the leaders of the suit was applicant Brenda Berman. The federal district court in Brooklyn sided with the women. Not everyone was happy about the decision. A group of demonstrators came to City Hall before the graduation with signs reading, quote, "I want to be saved by firemen." The Uniformed Firefighters Association also challenged the ruling. They tried to block the ceremony in the courts, arguing that training requirements had been changed to accommodate the women. Despite the legal challenges, the ceremony went on as scheduled. In his speech, Mayor Ed Koch said, quote, "As all of us have known all along, bravery and valor know no sex." After the graduation, the controversy over women firefighters continued. The women often faced sexual harassment on the job and vilification on the editorial pages of the city's newspapers. Bumper stickers reading, quote, "Don't send a girl to do a man's job," could be seen on the car bumpers of many male firefighters and at the city's firehouses. The women firefighters stood up to the harassment, testifying before the city council and holding street demonstrations to bring awareness to the discrimination.
If you're trying to enact an extremist right-wing policy, but the public keeps rejecting it, what do? You could try blatant deception, giving the same old policy a new coat of paint, a euphemistic name, and a multi-million-dollar political shove. That's the dark path now being taken by the clique of plutocrats and theocrats who are determined to privatize America's public schools. Take Texas Governor Greg Abbott. Please. Joking aside, he's been pushing to make taxpayers fund private schools. But his own right-wing legislature has consistently rejected his power play. After all, even red state Republicans don't want for-profit chains and religious zealots grabbing tax dollars to indoctrinate school children. So this year, Abbott and company rebranded their scheme as, quote, "school choice" and parental empowerment. Who could be against that? The people, it turns out. While some families might want exclusive private schools, their claim that they have no choice is a fraud. As one GOP legislator put it, his rural county has, quote, "private schools, a parochial school, a charter school, and a large homeschool community. That is choice," he rightly notes. Who are the privatizers? National billionaires like the Koch brothers. And in Texas, we have Tim Dunn and Ferris Wilks, two messianic oil billionaires from West Texas who double as proselytizers of a toxic theology of Christian nationalism. They are the money gods of school privatization. Indeed, the governor, more than half of Texas House members, and every Republican state senator are financially hooked on their oil money. This is Jim Hightower saying, no matter what slogan the privatizers masquerade behind, their goal is simply to defund public schools and divert our education dollars from the common good to their corporate and theological academy. Ask yourself, what would Jesus do?
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, she's going to endorse Donald Trump on Wednesday. And why Wednesday, do you ask? Well, evidently she's going to be going from her little state there of Arkansas. And maybe she's going to take the lectern/podium with her. Maybe that's coming. But yeah, she's going to endorse Trump on Wednesday, specifically on Wednesday, going from Arkansas to Miami. Going to take a little vacation in Miami where she can give her little endorsement. And why Wednesday, you ask, Bertel? That is debate night. And I got to tell you, I don't know why I don't know why Trump would highlight debate night, because I don't think anybody else is paying attention to it. because literally nobody's paying attention to it. Anyway, here to share some thoughts on the big endorsement. And if this is it, this is what's going to get Donald over the hump. Our good friend, former Ohio Congressman and political analyst, Bob Ney. Bob, thanks for taking time for us.
Thanks, Rick. You know what I just realized?
Do tell.
I do the news notes, as you know, put them out to the stations I'm on. And I just realized for the first time in 13, 14 years, I forgot to include debate night tomorrow. Seriously. I didn't realize. I've never done that before.
Well, you still have a chance. It's Wednesday, so you can still
Oh,
pop
I
in.
know, but if I didn't hear you right now, I would have went past Wednesday with the news notes. So,
Because
wow.
nobody's paying attention. None of these people on that stage have a chance.
I didn't pay attention,
All right. Well, so what do you think? Any thoughts on debate night, or we just skip right over that?
No, look, they're keeping themselves alive for one reason. They're hoping, I think, that Biden drops out with Harris. And if Biden, I've argued this 100 times, but if Biden drops out with Harris, Trump's done. Biden can beat Trump, and Trump can beat Biden, if that makes sense, if you look at the polls.
They're close.
Yeah, they're close. If Biden and Harris are not there, I would argue whoever comes in, Trump immediately loses a lot of the support he had, because maybe the independents, the undecideds, et cetera, go to a new person, and I think the polling would show him in pretty bad shape. So I think that's what they're all hoping for. What else would you hope for? Think about it.
Yeah, or he goes to jail, or something along those
Yeah,
lines.
even that one, they're indirectly outside hoping for that, but there's an appeals process, and the whole 9 yards.
And speaking of court, today there was Trump did a little song and dance. You surprised by the performance?
Yes, surprised.
Really surprised that he was going to throw a temper tantrum and attack the judge and the prosecutor? You're surprised at that?
Yes, I actually thought it would be a bit toned down. I really did.
No, see, I thought he was going to go full on crazy.
Oh, I didn't. But then when he did, I thought about it. And the judge, if you look at what the judge said, first of all, he was saying, and they took it out of context of Trump lawyers later, but he said, I don't want to hear what you have to say. And if you look at the total context, he's saying, I want you to answer yes or no questions. He didn't say, I don't want to hear what you have to say, and I make a judgment call. In other words, he didn't do that.
Right.
But I thought about this today. Why not become unhinged if he's Trump? Because if you're the judge, seriously, you've got to sit there, and normally you would bang the gavel probably after a period of time, because the judge kind of went back on what he said.
No, that kind of went completely back.
Yeah.
He said, if you can't keep your client in check, I will. Right. And then let Trump get even worse from what I read.
Then he let him get worse. Yeah, so, you're right. Not kind of. He did. But why did he do that? And I was thinking, if you're the judge sitting there in this unique case, you've got to say in your mind, okay, he's baiting me. If I bang the gavel and say contempt of court, put him in a cell, really?
Yep.
You want to talk about the martyr syndrome?
Yeah, absolutely.
Or if I bang the gavel and say you can't control your client, he doesn't speak anymore, I've truly silenced him. I think the judge realized it was a bait.
Yep.
It was a bait.
See, now, this is where my thought was. If I'm the judge, I don't even make that threat from the beginning. I just say, keep talking, stupid.
Right.
Keep digging yourself a hole. And I've said this all along with all of the judges who have been saying, we want you to curtail your social media or any of that. I say, keep talking, stupid. Keep digging yourself that deeper hole.
Right. Humans are funny because I don't know if you remember years back, there was a big movement and the Tea Party people went to the town halls, things like that.
It was big around here.
Yeah, oh yeah. And I knew a Democrat congressman was a really good friend of mine. He's deceased now. And he called me up and he said, what do you think? I said, look, you go to the town hall and you listen to this stuff, and it's irritating, et cetera, and you listen to the stuff. I said, I don't think you hold a bunch of town halls after that, but you tough it out, you know? And that's what the judge, I think, this is sort of like the town hall.
Yep.
The judge has to tough it out, and all the judges have to tough certain things out. This is not a normal case where you can bang that gavel and the result is, you know, the person sitting there goes, oh, I better behave myself. Doesn't happen that way.
No. As I said at the beginning, the reality is this plays to the Trump base because anybody who feels that the system has done them wrong. This is a guy taking on the system. This is a guy who's thumbing his nose. And look, you know, ultimately, you know, on a political sense, this is I think gonna be good for him. I just don't know in a business sense. And obviously, this is a civil trial. He's on the hook potentially for $250 million. I don't know how smart it is financially for a guy who is, you know, supposedly art of the deal. I don't know if this is a very good deal.
Well, remember something too. Think about this: the court, at the end of the day, in these cases, picks I don't know if you want to call him a regulator, but somebody that manages the business. You know, there was a TV show where this happened in one of the TV shows, and I remember they would fight back and forth with this guy. Can you imagine if you were the person that had every morning had to sit with Trump and argue about how the business was going to run that? Think about it. Would you not jump out of the top of a building in a week, and then you get a new one in? Huh?
Yeah, no, that you got a point.
Okay.
You got a point. There's nothing good there. Let me ask you about the polling numbers. I'm sure you've seen the Siena College poll. That not good, not good. I know it's a year out. Actually, exactly a year out. Any thoughts on the polling?
Yes, I had a friend of mine call me today, and she is what I would deem to be pretty well to the left of the left, very educated and very left to the left, and has nothing good to say about Trump, and called me today and said this has to be wrong. And I said that's where you're going to go wrong. This has to be taken serious because it's not so much. Well, it's a point where Biden is losing 5 of the 6 battleground states, but it's not that as much as I'm in absolute shock because this is unprecedented in modern times. But Trump is now registering 22% support from black voters in these states. That hasn't been seen for a Republican in a long, long time in our modern times, right? Also, and I looked at this with the present Israel-Hamas situation and Palestinians, the young vote was like 1%, single digits, I should say, to Biden's favor. And right now, a lot of young voters are really into the, Palestinian side of things, I believe. And so that's, an interesting factor probably, for Michigan in particular. But the voters under 30 favor Biden by a single percentage point. The other thing about these polls, which it baffles me completely, if you look at Biden and his positions on Israel and then the voters in the polling on Israel, Biden has done exactly what they think should be done, 67% of the people. Yet, when they're polled, they say, but Biden hasn't done enough what he should. So I'm looking at this, and then the economics, and then I saw the answer from the Biden campaign, and they're going to have to sharpen their pencils here. The answer was, basically radical extremists, Well, you can say that, but when you start to look at 22% of the black voters supporting Trump, let's not put them in the radical extremist category.
No, that's a good point.
Yeah. And so this is a warning to the Biden campaign that they are not getting a message somehow. It is short-circuiting between the White House and the public.
And what do you think has caused that? What do you think has brought that on? Is it a policy thing? I had someone earlier point out the fact that the child tax credit went away is maybe a reason why a lot of working class voters are struggling so much and down on the economy, which again, Republicans are the ones who fought against. But does that play into it? What do you see as or is it just, hey, things haven't gotten much better under Biden that they can see, and they're pining for the good old days? Any thoughts?
Well, technically, things, Biden inherited certain things that were a detriment, and technically some things have gotten better. That message hasn't gotten through. People have this kind of underlying, fear. I think it's a post-COVID deal, personally. That's where I think some of this, comes from. But on top of it, I believe that the Biden campaign has made, in the Biden White House, they're intermixed, how it runs. But, Rick, I think they've made the mistake that Biden warned Obama about when he was vice president. Biden was smart. He went to Obama and said, you did an issue and you just said, oh, here it is, look how great, and then you moved on without cementing the issue. And so I think the White House, in what it's done, has just moved on, too quickly and not gotten that issue out there. I'll give you a perfect example. Now, some listeners may not like this example, but I'll give you one. The border has issues. I mean, it simply does. It has issues of people coming across, et cetera. And I know some people within the progressive side are not particularly happy with Biden, but how many people, that not radical, but how many people in the middle are like, hey, I'm kind of worried about border security? How many people know that Biden's actually done something about it? I don't think they do.
No, they don't.
I don't think they have any concept that he's done anything about it.
Especially because you hear Republicans constantly hammering on that he's done nothing.
That he's opened the borders, blah, 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 on and on and on, when in reality, Biden, at the point where he's had, some of the progressives angry at him, Biden has done some things to fortify the border. He recently stopped the ability, if you're not coming in with a family, to just come in and say, oh, I'm here. He changed some of that criteria. So he's done some things. He's talked about refortifying some of the spots where people can get through. I don't want to get into the wall thing,
right.
But he's done that. And there's zero knowledge or credit for that. I mean, that's just one thing that I can point out. I guess the second thing is, I ask myself, I sit here, and I'm a news junkie like you, et cetera, but I'm sitting here thinking, okay, where's he at on student loans right now? What's happened with that? Did he do something, or it's not ingrained out there, enough.
And I would argue, the reality is that the right has built a massive media machine. Be it talk radio where they're completely dominant, cable news where they dominate, online they have an enormous presence. It's a much better digital strategy and better digital plan than the Democrats have. They have messaging down, whereas as I keep saying about Biden, he's just a guy who gets up every day and does the work. And like my friends in the labor movement, they don't take credit for anything. They don't toot their own horn. They don't do any of that stuff. And maybe they should spend a little time saying, "Hey, look at the great stuff we're doing."
Yeah, that goes back to what I just said about Biden when he warned Obama, you move on too fast. You're not letting this sink in. Well, now I think he needs to heed, his own words, and they need to get out there. The other thing is, look, people will consider MAGA, as way out there, or all the MAGA people are way out there, or some of them are, or whatever. I think that in itself is a theme that's out there, and people made decisions. I think the campaign needs to not ride that theme that the answer to everything is, Trump's out there. We know he's out there.
That's why his base loves him.
Yeah, he's out there, and so them saying which they answer to the polling. Well, it's the radical. People are going to see this. Well, I still say bring it back to the issues. Bring it straight home to the issues. And Biden, at this point in time, I would put the squeeze on the oil companies. I would do that. How about the pharmaceutical ideas that he had? You know, in the Medicare. What about all of that?
Yeah.
So I'm saying, you know, he's got to energize tooting his own horn. But you are completely right. The right has dominated the airwaves.
No, look, we're a top one, a Talkers 100 top program.
Right.
We're closing down on December 1st.
Yeah,
because look, there are no resources to make this, and there aren't enough platforms for us to continue on. We've grown to the limits that there is possible on this side of the aisle, and that's a sad testament to the fact that they've built no infrastructure for this for their messaging. I mean, it's not like I'm a paid DNC guy, but I like a lot of the policies that Biden has moved forward on. I like the investments that we're making in the future of this country. I love the fact that his labor secretary is doing some really great work. I love the fact that his NLRB is doing incredible stuff. That is all stuff that no working person really knows is going on, and they should be hammering on this. They should be every day talking about it. But
it goes to my point, because you've been a voice of working people, and it's the perfect issue, because you know what? It's a true issue. And how did Trump capture the votes against Hillary? I know. Trade, working people. You'd have thought he was a labor leader when he was running, right? I mean, you really,
and he showed up
there. Yeah, and so that's what needs to happen on the radio waves, which you do perfectly, and that type of investment needs to happen, and that people spend money on all kinds of other foolish things. So I don't get it, but that's where he has to hammer home for working people. What working people care about.
Yep.
And of course, this all gets so off track on so many other things, and right now, of course, Israel and Palestinians is the, dominant
that's tearing
thing.
us apart.
And it is. And then the other thing, too, is, okay, you got the speaker, and he's way out there, and I understand all that, but what about, the White House can recognize, hey, he's out there, but here's what we want to do, and they need to get Democrats in the House to sponsor their initiatives. And if the initiatives don't get a vote, you keep hammering it that you want a vote, and you bring it up. You bring it up in 1 minute on the floor. You make motions. You do that. You force the Republicans to turn down something that working people say, wow, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
But you got to get it out there.
You got to do the work.
Sure.
It's that simple.
Absolutely.
Real quick, Ohio. How are things going to go on Election Day?
Well, I'm going to go. Issue 1 wins. It does a yes. I'm still, like I said the other night, it's Ohio. I don't know. It's been so non-existent on issue 2. I think maybe issue 2 doesn't make it. I could be wrong.
So abortion is going to be safe and legal in Ohio after this.
Yes.
It'll be a
Issue
constitutional
1
amendment
passes.
on issue 1, but no legal pot. Is that where you're going?
That's what I'm thinking, only because nobody has breathed a word on issue 2. So everybody, issue 1, you're going, oh, okay, I've read this, I read that, I'm going to vote yes on issue 1. Issue 2, what the heck is that?
Yeah,
I didn't know that one. Boo.
Will the stoners get out to vote?
They might forget it's election day, You never know.
Well, you forgot Wednesday's debate night, so it's possible.
Yeah, I did. I sure did.
But, Bob, I appreciate the time. As always, good stuff, my friend.
Thank you, Rick.
Our good friend Bob Ney. Let's take a quick break, right back to wrap things up. Stick around. You listen to The Rick Smith Show. We're working people from the top. I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1860. That was the day that Abraham Lincoln was elected 16th President of the United States. When Lincoln came to office, the nation was deeply divided on the question of slavery. By December 20th, South Carolina had seceded from the United States. Less than a month later, Confederate soldiers fired on Fort Sumter in South Carolina. With those shots, it became clear the issue of slavery would be settled by a civil war. The first year of the war was not going well for the Union. In December 1861, President Lincoln sat down to pen his annual message to Congress. In 1934, President Franklin Delano Roosevelt renamed that annual message the State of the Union. The speech still goes by that name today. By all accounts, the State of the Union was very grim in 1861. 11 states had seceded and were at war with the Union. Lincoln's long message to Congress included a summary of the war as well as foreign relations. But it ended with Lincoln's thoughts about the nature of work and labor in the United States. It included some of the most famous words ever uttered by a sitting president about labor. Lincoln wrote, "Labor is prior to and independent of capital. Capital is only the fruit of labor and could have never existed if labor had not first existed. Labor is superior of capital and deserves much the higher consideration." Lincoln ended his address by noting that the war that embroiled the nation would have a profound impact, not just on the current generation fighting. He wrote that the conflict would shape the vast future of the nation. Lincoln was felled by an assassin's bullet. He did not live to see that vast future after the Civil War. Like what you hear? Check out more at laborhistoryin2.com. Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Check out the website, thericksmithshow.com. Questions, comments, something on your mind, email me, rick at thericksmithshow.com. I look at Election Day, Tuesday. Hope folks were going to get out and vote. I'm looking forward to being able to do that. Election Day, I love Election Day. It's one of those things that, when our kids were really small, we would drag them along. So they saw participation, being part of the process of self-governance, important stuff. And I would hate losing that. And I know a lot of people have said, hey, if Trump becomes president again, last ever election, I don't know. I think they'll still have them. They'll just be shams. But a couple of things that I'm going to be paying attention to on Election Day. The Virginia legislature, for instance, is a big one. Youngkin got kind of a push because of the crazy Moms for Liberty types. They weren't then yet, but in the anti-education money that came in that proposed, and look, Terry McAuliffe was a terrible candidate, and basically blew it with that parents don't have a right to nonsense. It'd be interesting to see where Virginia voters go in deciding their legislature. Ohio, obviously, the country is going to be looking to Ohio to see which way they go on the abortion issue. Personally, I would have preferred this to happen next year as something to get people out, but we'll see. We'll see how many people show up. Typically, in these off-year elections, Democrats don't come out in big numbers, and which is the reason that Republicans moved on this in the state to do it now, because they thought, hey, we can sneak this one by them. We'll throw the old fastball by them while they're not even looking. So we'll see if it does draw people out, and we'll see where if legal pot is something that happens in Ohio as well, which would be kind of weird. Also going to be checking out the gubernatorial races in Kentucky and Mississippi. A possibility of two very, very red states having Democratic governors. That's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. I'm thinking Kentucky, the Democrat wins. I'm thinking Mississippi, the Democrat loses. But I would love to see both ways. I'd love to see them both win. But this election, this one's going to kind of be the litmus test for what 2024 is going to be. The narrative is Democratic voters are not engaged and excited and energized. We will see on Election Day 2023 if that narrative holds true. But I want to hear your thoughts. Email me, rick at thericksmithshow.com. By all means, if I said something that got under your skin, got on your nerves, made you think, I want to hear about it. If you miss any portion of the program, make sure you grab the podcast. Wherever you find your podcast, you'll find ours. Thanks so much for being here. We'll see you back here next time.
You've You've been listening to The Rick Smith Show. Email Rick at rick@thericksmithshow.com. Until next time, this has been The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.